Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Just Another Esports podcast. Once again, joined by me, your host, Nicholas Shady Bacon, and my co host, Mr. Kevin Hubris. This past weekend, we wrapped up Stage 5 group play. We're finally done with group play for the 2021 CDL season. We'll be moving into the Stage 5 major, which is the last major before champs this weekend. And then I think we have probably a 3 or so week break before we go into the Call of Duty Championship. And so this weekend, there were a couple of crazy upsets. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, both you and I, we did pretty good in our predictions. Barring that, I mean, I went 7 for 10. You went 6 for 10. The coin actually went 6 for 10. It had us in the second half, though. Not gonna
Yeah.
lie, it got all of those crazy upsets right. It started off really bad Thursday and Friday. It got the first two wrong, then it got the Toronto matchup correct, then it got the next two wrong. But after that, it went flawless, getting the next five correct in a row, and getting the probably the biggest two upsets of the week correct that were on that Saturday. But heading into the first matchup that we did see, we got to see a look at this New York Subliners lineup without Clayster in the lineup, him taking a little mental reprieve from competition before the major and champs. And it did go all the way to a game five. This was one where we disagreed on. I thought New York was going to be able to be good enough to pull out the dub here up against the Paris Legion in a game five. And that is actually what it went down to. It was mostly off the back, though, I want to say, of Hydra with some
Yeah.
just absolutely insane plays up against Paris, especially in those respawns. And New York's comms, I didn't think they were actually all too bad with Outclacer. I think that was definitely probably a good learning experience for some of those younger players on that roster, is to kind of see firsthand kind of the holes that form within the team when that big component that is Clayster is missing. And so I hope that this weekend was kind of a learning experience for them, and it was still very nice that they were able to pull out that dub up against the Paris Legion lineup.
Yeah, I really thought that they wouldn't be able to get it together against Paris. I felt like Paris was starting to play some serious spoiler considering their current performance or their most recent performance. But not good enough to beat the Subliners. So yeah, that's on me, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it still came down to a 3-2. It's a close game, and it really could have gone either way. But um, But yeah, New York Subliners definitely look a lot worse without Clay.
Yeah, that's for sure. And a lot of it probably has to come with the lack of practice too with the new lineup, since they only had a couple of days to do so.
Right.
But going to a game five up against Paris when a couple stages ago they were all the way in the grand finals is definitely not kind of the look you want to have in this later portion of the season with champs coming up. The other Thursday matchup, though, that we did see, it was the London Royal Ravens going up against Chicago Optic. Chicago Optic quickly dispatched them in 3-0 fashion. There were a couple of close-ish maps here and there. I believe the respawns were relatively close in those series. But Scump really kind of handed it to the London Royal Ravens roster. He had an insane three-piece. I know I wrote that down just because it was a mess.
Yeah,
I
I remember
believe
that
that
was
was in
nuts.
the S&D, I think it was. So Scump's had a phenomenal S&D year. He turned from a respawn player to an S&D kid, but he can still carry his own in the respawns. But he's been having a. I don't know why people have been saying Scump should retire. He's still pretty freaking good.
Yeah,
So
he's pretty good. I mean, I guess what really comes down to it is like, is he able to like keep that consistency going? You know, like formal, you know
yeah,
what you're gonna get every single like pass aside from like his search performances early on, you know what you're gonna get from formal, and then you've got Envoy who kind of lives and dies by whether or not his teammates are able to slay out. And then you got Dashi, who is considerably an inconsistent player, even though even on his off days he does okay. He's not the worst player on the team.
yeah.
And
I feel like this Scump's been really consistent the past two seasons. He hasn't been like kind of the superstar of the team, but he's been consistently good, I think, both seasons. And then Dashi has kind of finally started to pick it up towards the latter half of the season. And obviously, we saw in that phase matchup, Envoy kind of came into form there.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
Chicago, they claimed the first seed with this victory over the London Royal Ravens, and so they will be in a good position to try and pass up Dallas or Dallas or Toronto, I guess, for the third place spot at this Stage 5 major for the seeding for champs. But moving into Friday, we saw Toronto versus Florida Mutineers. This was a 3-1 victory for the Toronto Ultra over the Florida Mutineers. Florida actually had a really rough week, to say the least. They found themselves undefeated going into this weekend, and they had an 0-2 week. And with a later 3-0 loss to the Minnesota Rocker, they found themselves out of all the tiebreakers. And even though they started off really nice 3-0, having beaten Dallas Empire earlier in the stage, they find themselves in losers bracket as the fifth place team in their group.
Yep.
So,
No
or
new
fourth place
news
team.
there. The Florida Mutineers starting losers again. I think this has happened in every major. Correct me if I'm wrong.
May no, maybe I don't think it's happened every major. I think there was one where they started winners, but
Winners. Okay.
the two losses here, especially the one to the Rocker, is huge because that is one of the teams that they were really looking to pass in the rankings before the end of the regular season so that they could start in winners come champs. Because right now they're currently in that 7th, 8th spot where they'll start in losers, and Rocker was only 20 points ahead of them in that 6th place spot, starting in the winners bracket of champs. And they're in that race to they were in that race to try and take that spot. And this loss to the Rocker and then the loss to the Toronto and starting losers bracket at the major definitely hurts their chances of getting that also valuable 6th place spot
Right.
and that winners bracket spot come champs. But
Well, I mean, it's still not over. It really does depend on the performances in the major, but it will be significantly difficult for Florida. I mean, they're gonna have to play at least another game over the Rocker in order for them um to get enough points to leverage over. So it's it's gonna be a photo finish for what I really think won't matter for either team. Don't get me wrong, like both teams are good enough to make the playoffs, but I don't think either of them have the team composition or the discipline to make a champs run. So I don't
yeah,
know. They could.
out of the bottom of the barrel teams that are making champs, your Thieves, your Florida, your Rocker, I definitely had Florida as the largest chance of making a dark horse run out of those three, simply
Right.
because of kind of the highs that we have seen with them throughout the season. And so
Yeah, I mean
this
they've
kind of
beaten
just really
everybody.
hurts their chance. Yes, they have beaten. I don't think they've beaten Toronto. I don't know. They beat Dallas though, and Dallas is looking like the second best team in the league
Yeah, for sure.
currently.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see um how Dallas shapes up going into this or after this major, I should say. Um, but Florida right now, yeah, this is not looking good, and I don't know if there's any like immediate fix to it.
Yeah, it's just kind of the inconsistency that they've had all season,
Right.
and it's going to be hard for them to fix an issue that they've had the whole season now, unless they've been working on it slowly and surely. But we haven't really seen too much progression towards it. In a less interesting Friday matchup, we had Seattle Surge going up with Dallas. Seattle, I mean, they even admitted that they're just trolling in their matches now, so not really going to talk about that at all. That's just kind of disrespectful to the fans.
I think
That
Octane ran a sub in this.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
that was a 3-0 to be expected. Dallas is just a better team anyways.
right.
We'll just move on to Saturday. Saturday we had the London Royal Ravens taking on the Paris Legion. London was able to come out on top in 3-2 fashion over the Paris Legion. London's finally clutching up in game fives. It only took them until stage 5 to start doing it, but I believe they have three game 5, or they had at least 2 game 5 victories in this stage, and then they had one against New York in stage 4. Stage 4 or 3, I do believe. So London, they're starting to get that Game 5 mojo, but unfortunately, it's a little too late into the season. But at least some good looks from there and some of the potential future stars on that lineup in Afro moving forward. But we'll just continue on into the Saturday matchup. Kind of already discussed this. Minnesota 3-0 Florida Mutineers. Was there anything that stood out to you in that Minnesota matchup that you really liked from the Minnesota Rocker in their
Well,
victory over Florida?
honestly, like taking a closer look at it and really starting to think about it, the only game mode that they looked even remotely competitive in was the search because it went to around 11. But Rocker's respawn has been unbelievable recently. And I mean, it's it's not that Standy is doing any better. It really is that Attach and Standy are working pretty well. And I think Major Maniac's finally found his groove in the team. So him and Priesta are starting to feel those Atlanta FaZe vibes, and it's kind of what I was expecting out of this roster. I figured accuracy wouldn't be permanent unless the game was really, really slow, which it isn't. The game is actually pretty fast, all things considered.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't think we've really had a slow COD since World War II.
yeah,
And before then, I don't even know what you would call the last slow Call of Duty game.
shoot,
Any Call of Duty game with a slide is realistically not going to be classified as slow,
yep,
uh, or one with jetpacks too. But I think all the jetpack games had sliding. So
yeah. Well, I mean, like you already got a jetpack on you. What's sliding? Like, I mean, you already have advanced movement. Um, so yeah, this like accuracy wasn't the right choice in my eyes, and this Rocker team is looking pretty good. I don't know if they can beat FaZe. I don't know if
they cannot beat FaZe.
I don't know if they
They
can beat Dallas. I don't know if they can beat Chicago. Um,
I don't think
like
they can beat the top four teams, which I would classify as Atlanta, Dallas, Toronto, and Chicago.
yeah,
I
and
don't think
Toronto.
any of them are beatable for
No.
Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean they might be able to play spoiler, take rounds off of them. Like I said, the respawn looks good, but I mean this search, Florida's good at search, but I mean, you can't be going to round 11s and hoping that you're gonna come out on top whenever you have to play these like some of these more elite teams. So don't get me wrong, I still think that the Rocker are looking good, and who knows, they might be able to make a deep little run into challenge or not challenge in the major, but we'll see.
Yeah. The other upset of that Saturday, it was the LA Thieves beating Chicago Optic in a reverse sweep 3-2. So bit unfortunate there for us in our predictions. Neither of us got that one right. You got the Minnesota one correct, so props to you there.
Well, I
But
mean, like I said, I knew
yeah,
I
it
had
was
a
on brand for
feeling.
Florida. This one would have been like I think we both said this loss is on brand for Chicago, but we were just too convinced with their FaZe victory that they had the week prior that we're like, nah, man. Even though it's on brand for Chicago to lose to Thieves, they'll get the dub. But that was not the case. It was reverse sweep. Very unfortunate for them. It didn't affect the standings at all. All it really did, I think, was help LA Thieves more so in their pursuit of that sixth place spot, which they're now a little further ahead in the running than the Florida Mutineers are because they were able to pick up a victory this weekend. But I don't think there was really too many things to take away from that. Just some good plays from the LA Thieves in the latter half of that series and some mistakes from this Chicago Optic roster. And Draza being really good on checkmate.
Yeah, I think that yeah, Draza, holy. Let's talk about Draza seriously. Draza
Want to talk
started
about Draza again?
like I cannot give this guy more props. Seriously. Like going in, beating Optic, you started off as a bench player this year, which was disrespectful, honestly. Completely disrespectful, especially of like They knew who they had. They they knew what they had because he was on the roster last year with them, and he's a solid player. You
Yeah,
take him in and out of the lineup.
it was kind of just part of that friendship thing. They didn't know him well enough as a person, and so they didn't want to start with him on the roster.
Yeah,
They
I don't know. Kid's electric. That's the problem. Is like he's a fantastic player, and he popped off seriously against Chicago. I mean, he's rescuing Slasher's career, who's taken a page out of Clay's book and said, just get one of the young bucks to do it all for you. Um, so don't get me wrong. The whole Thieves roster looked really good in that, and Chicago didn't look terrible. Just I mean, it came down to the wire. Usually that's how it goes with some of these teams. So it's nice to see that LA might be finding some traction with this roster. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like all slasher rosters usually find some way to perform decently well at champs. It, they might just falter early into champs and then start to make a deep run. I don't know. The roster always starts to click for slasher teams come the end of the season. I feel, at least as history shows.
Yeah,
But
I don't know. They're crazy.
I think we'll move on to our Sunday matchups, though. We had a 3-0 stomping by Seattle Surge over LAG. Nothing to say there. Then we had a 3-0 stomping from Atlanta FaZe over New York. And stomping, I don't really feel does this scoreline justice. I think every player on Atlanta FaZe was positive 20 kills outside of Arcides, who was like +1 or something. But it was just absolute and utter destruction of New York delivered by the hand of the Atlanta FaZe. It was an absolute stomping. And so it was fun to watch the stomping, not so much fun to probably receive that stomping. And so FaZe is looking pretty scary as they have all season going into the Stage 5 Major. But the most important matchup of this past weekend was Toronto versus Dallas, that battle for second place to start in winners round 2 come champs. And Dallas was able to take the dub over the Toronto Ultra 3-1 in this series here. So both
Yeah,
you and I had Toronto taking it. Unfortunately for them, it went the way of Dallas. Did you have any kind of points that you took away from this matchup?
I think that so if we take a look at the maps that they played, um, we had a bunch of raid and express, and yeah, theoretically they could have played all three raid maps.
I think the
But
Express surprises me.
the express, I don't know. So I feel like Dallas plays this okay.
Yeah, Dallas plays it okay. I'm surprised Toronto let it through.
Yeah, that's kind of my concern as well. Is maybe they're just trying to figure out deeper map pools against good teams, and maybe that's why they threw this one. It's the respawns were all close. I mean, like this was a very hard fought match by both of them. I mean, it was 231 to 250 in the first raid, and then in Garrison it was 250 to 216, and then Control went to Ultra actually 3-2. So it was one of those things that the maps were really close. It's just this time Dallas Empire's number came up, which I mean is to be expected. We've seen these teams go against each other multiple times now, and it seems like a back and forth.
Yeah, it's just that I I would be fine with them testing their map pool against other teams, but up against the one team that they're battling for second place with, maybe that's not such a great decision unless they just really don't care and they want to go into champs with more maps under their belt. They want to play that first round. Since I mean, I don't think they're really afraid of the sixth place team if they do end up in third. That's in the scenario where Chicago doesn't end up passing them in points at this major, and then they end up playing New York, which I guess at this point they probably feel pretty good about playing New York as well. So
Yeah, so I don't know. Like, also, I have no idea what's going on with New York, all things considered. I'm nervous to even have them winning games in this major because I don't know if Glacier going to be there, and I firmly believe that Glacier is the reason why they win games, despite how well they performed against um, uh, Paris.
Paris,
That's Paris, right? I mean, like,
yeah,
come on. You can pull a game off of a kind of a trash team. And I mean, like, you had a good showing in the respawns, sort of. I mean, Apocalypse, you guys they didn't have that figured out at all. Everything was close except for the last match, the standoff. And I don't know what happened there. I think it was just one of those that they knew that if they could squeak to there, that they had momentum. I don't know. I mean, they literally got bodied in Apocalypse. They almost got a 100-point clubbed, 250 to 124. That's embarrassing. So there's still a lot of work to be done on that side, and if Clayster's not coming back, then I just don't have a lot of faith in the Subliners roster anymore. So I'm hoping they prove me wrong because I mean, like they've been really fun to watch all year. Hydra's been a beast. Mac Melts has been really consistent. Asim, despite all the visa stuff, has been a consistent player. And having Diamond Con come back into the roster felt natural. Actually, I mean, it wasn't bad, but I don't know. Like you're missing out on I mean years of veteran professional Call of Duty experience with Clayster, and you can't replace that. So
yeah, I definitely agree, and it'll be interesting to see if he plays at this major, and then if he plays at champs. I originally thought so, but with some of the rumors going around and whatnot, who knows at this point, to be honest. But do you have any other kind of stories circulating that you want to discuss? I don't think I really have any off the top of my head or written down that I can think of.
really, at this point, a lot of this is already set in stone. Teams are satisfied with the rosters that they currently have. I don't imagine there's going to be any more roster changes, even from the Thieves. And that's even considering like if like let's say in the major they play Toronto and they're probably gonna get bodied there, and then they would go to elimination round 3 and play Florida. Even if they lost both of those, I still don't think they would make a roster change. So um, I think they're pretty satisfied with what they've got going on right now, and um, I don't think that they're gonna make a champs run, but I also don't think that they're gonna embarrass themselves. And the first year and all of the other craziness that's gone on around with the Thieves, um, I don't think that they're gonna make any more roster changes, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, only they know, because they have certainly
No,
made. I guess
they
only
they don't
Jacob
know.
knows.
JCap doesn't even know. He's throwing darts at a dartboard at
He
this
flips
point.
a coin. He flips a coin that
Yeah.
decides the roster. You know how he said it was a coin flip league? He didn't mean the match outcomes. He meant what roster the LA
Yep.
Thieves were going to start with next
Is
week.
Hook starting? Nope. Can't pass COVID test.
All right. Well, we'll move into our predictions for the stage 5 major. We'll kick it off with our Thursday matchup. We got the Seattle Surge going up against the Paris Legion.
Is this a
And
LAN?
it is LAN. It is at the same place, and I believe they plan on having fans this time
I fucked up.
around, if that influences your decision at all.
Well,
But
I already submitted my bracket, so I forgot that this is
oh
going to be
no,
LAN. So I undervalued Seattle in this one. I had them losing to Paris 3-1.
I
but
mean, it could still
it could still
happen. They
happen.
have nothing. They have nothing to play for. Octane seems to want to troll. Maybe we'll see a sniper though. That would be nice, since neither of these teams. Well, I think he still wants some money from this, but we'll see. So maybe if they can agree with the Paris Legion, if they can use snipers in the S&D, we'll see one. But I'm gonna go 3-1 Surge over the Paris Legion. It's back on land, and while that doesn't affect how I feel about these teams, it does affect Octane's mentality, and that apparently has a big effect on his game. So I think we'll see an increase in performance from the Seattle Surge roster as a result of weak mental, and they will beat the Paris Legion 3-1. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, next up after that match, we have New York Subliners against LA Gorillas. I'm taking New York Subliners 3-1 against the Gorillas. Gorillas are just really, really, really bad. And even if Clayster doesn't come back, I think the Subliners can easily dispatch the LA Gorillas, since they were able to beat the Paris Legion. I hold the Paris Legion in higher regards than the Gorillas currently.
Yeah, I mean, even like with or without Clay, I think Gorillas get bodied. I'm also going with Subliners 3-1.
Okay. After that match, we have Atlanta FaZe going against Minnesota Rocker. Atlanta FaZe been the #1 team all season. They're going to 3-1 Minnesota Rocker. And I have Toronto Ultra 3-2ing the LA Thieves. I feel like LA Thieves might do something weird, give them a little bit of trouble, since I know Slasher also has weak mental and thinks highly of LAN.
Weak mental thinks highly of Lan. Yeah. So you think that I'm saying Toronto at 3-2 over the Thieves. So
Okay, so we're in agreement that's a 3-2. I
yeah,
didn't say LA Thieves was going to beat Toronto.
no, I think that the if the Thieves beat Toronto, I won't be that shocked because they did just beat Chicago, but I don't know. Toronto's just different, you know. Like they look lean and mean and ready to compete. So um yeah,
Yeah,
so
Toronto's just been one of those rosters that's been good, and they haven't really had any inconsistencies. It's just you have to be better than them,
right.
like straight up. Otherwise, you're not gonna take the dub over them. At least on the day. I mean, Florida did steal a victory. No, they lost to Toronto. Florida was able to beat Dallas. Never mind. Never mind. But we'll move into our Friday matchups. Kicking off Friday, if our predictions are correct, we will have the London Roll Ravens going up against the Seattle Surge. Now, this one's a bit more tricky, I think, for me than the Seattle Paris matchup. However, if this was online, I would say the Ravens take it. But because of Octane's weak mental and it being on land, I have an inkling that Surge will be able to steal the dub in a game 5 up against the Ravens. What say you?
I have Legion Ravens, so I don't know if it's as relevant. I'm saying the Legion take it over London because I mean
Okay.
I think that they do look like a better team than London, but it is on land, so who knows? Honestly, none of this matters. This is just
Yeah.
it's
At
peanuts.
least so far, none of these losers round matches really matter. Not even New York's matches matter realistically, since they're not going to catch up to the 3rd seed, and they're not going to drop below Minnesota. So they're kind of just stuck where they're at. They're chilling. These are kind of just exhibition scrims. These are just scrims. I'm not going to try and pronounce the word because I'm going to screw it up because I'm bad at pronunciation. There we go. Florida Subliners. Florida, I'm taking Florida over the Subliners 3-1. They won't lose to New York with the substitution this time around. We hope.
Yeah, I'm taking Florida 3-1.
All right.
I
I
mean,
don't think,
there's no shot that they lose to a Claysterless subliners.
yeah. More interesting matches, though. Probably much more toughly contested ones. We got Dallas versus FaZe, and we got Chicago versus the Ultra. So in the first matchup, I'm going to take FaZe 3-1 over the Dallas Empire. Realistically, I think Dallas actually has a better best of 5 map pool set than FaZe do. However, I don't think FaZe are going to get as shocked from the Dallas Empire lineup as they might have been at that stage 4 major. Dallas kind of came up from the ashes out of nowhere. They hadn't really been amazing all season. And stage 4, they finally kind of hit form. And that probably took a lot of the teams by surprise. They probably weren't looking at them as in depth as they would a top contender. And now Dallas is a top contender. And so I think a lot more eyes are on them, analyzing their gameplay, coming up with counter strategies. And for that reason, I think Atlanta FaZe is going to be able to dispatch the Dallas Empire this time around in a 3-1 fashion.
Yeah, I really do think that um the FaZe are gonna take it over Dallas here. I got it in 3-2. It is a it's gonna be a close game regardless. Um, I would imagine that if the Empire do beat them here, my bracket's gonna be completely busted since I have FaZe kind of just going into winners and winning it all because it's land, and last time they were on land, they didn't look like they could be stopped. So, I mean, FaZe have won all but one of the majors at this point. This is, I mean, this is the most dominant Call of Duty season of maybe of all time. Honestly, I don't remember last time somebody went through the league and just bodied everybody this hard. Can you think of anything that comes close to how FaZe have been this year?
Not since we've had a league. I
Well,
mean, I
like
know
CWL.
yeah. Well, in CWL, you had Optic kind of dominating in regular season matches, but then you have them go to majors or I guess tournaments at the time, and they wouldn't put up the performance FaZe have. Kind of last time we've seen this kind of long-term dominance, I would say, where the team is just super consistent, is that Cole Dynasty through Ghosts, where they
Oh yeah,
were literally winning every tournament that they attended outside of like one or two.
that was
So
a beast lineup though. Honestly, like that was some legends.
it was, and the competition back then was definitely not nearly as good as it is now. So his phase lineup, especially if they win champs this year, will, in my book, have been the most dominant uh, Call of Duty lineup we've seen to date. And it'll just be more interesting to see if they can pass up the Optic Dynasty in terms of longevity, which, based on kind of the comments of the players, it seems like they want to ride this roster out as long as they can. So, but moving into our last Friday matchup, it's Optic versus Toronto. This is another tough one to decide,
Yeah, I know.
especially if we kind of see good form from Envoy and kind of the rest of the roster. I'm singling out Envoy simply because his performance in like that phase match was definitely a key decider in them
True.
winning it. And I think Optic this time around on LAN is going to perform much better than they did the first time, simply because they realize that there is no difference between LAN and online in terms of outcomes realistically. Based on kind of that the progress, the process. docu-series video that they released, which was amazing, by the way. Hats off to Roger and Matt and the team over there at Energy and Optic Chicago for making that. Really good. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend watching it. But based on kind of the conversation and what Envoy was getting angry about after that stage 4 major was, we're making the same mistakes that we were making online, and we can't use this stupid excuse of, oh, it will be different on LAN. It's not different. It's exactly the same.
Right.
And so I think this time around, Optic's definitely going to come in with more prepared and a better mindset. It's just difficult because this Toronto Ultra rosters has been honestly extremely consistent since bringing in Insight and their Major 2 victory. Like, they haven't really looked weak. Who are you going with for this matchup?
I'm going with Optic 3-2 over Toronto. So I think that you're right. It's Toronto. You just have to be better than them to beat them. And I think that Optic is reaching that final form where they can beat teams like Toronto. It's not going to be easy. It's really not. Every single game is going to come to the wire. Toronto is incredibly resilient in the hard points. Their control game is fantastic, and it's really going to come down to the search play. And I think that Optic's playing a little bit better search than Toronto currently. So,
Yeah, I think if Optic takes the W, they gotta kind of take 2 search and destroys, because I can't see them beating Toronto on a hard point that they pick, and I definitely don't see them taking a W in control up against this Toronto Ultra lineup. So if Optic wins, it's going to have to be in that game 5, and they're going to have to take both S&Ds.
right.
However, I think I will agree with you that I'll give it to Optic 3-2 over the Toronto Ultra. I think they have what it takes to take 2 S&Ds against Toronto if they play their vetoes appropriately. Since I definitely think they can win their pick, and as long as Toronto doesn't get an extremely solid S&D pick of their own, where they just got insane strats, because like Toronto, they've done some insanely creative and just patient plays in S&D. I think most notably on Moscow, where they're rotating back and forth between bomb sites for what feels like a whole minute. But yeah, I'll go with you, and I'll agree. Optic 3-2 over Toronto Ultra. Moving into Saturday, we start the day off with LA Thieves up against the Florida Mutineers. This is a really important match to continue the run to overpass the Minnesota Rocker in points and claim that 6th place spot. And I am going to give it to the Mutineers. 3-1 over the Thieves. What saith you?
Thieves here?
You going with Thieves?
Yeah, I think I'm going with the Thieves over the Mutineers. Honestly,
I'm
they're
not being baited by their win over Chicago. Because I
no.
feel like every time I've been baited by them I feel like I've been baited every time by them beating a strong team. And then the next time I see them play a match against a team that they should realistically beat, they just up and lose it.
I mean, regardless of who wins or loses here, they're gonna get beat by Dallas in the next series. It doesn't
Yes.
matter. So I went with the Thieves 3-1. So I mean, like I said, I don't even know if it matters. So
Okay.
the
So we're a bit flip flop there. I'm going Mutineers 3-1. You're going Thieves 3-1. So
the elimination round 3 is who gets to get put in a blender by a real team. That's it. It really doesn't matter. Like even this Rocker Paris Legion,
yeah, because at that point you're facing a top 4 team.
yeah, you're facing Ultra and you're gonna get bodied. I have Rocker winning that one 3-1 over Paris, but it's just like neither of these are going to result in wins moving forward. In elimination round 4, that'll be it'll just be the top 4 teams left, in my opinion.
Yeah,
So
I am agreeing with that. I have Minnesota beating Surge since Surge
right.
beat Paris and they beat London in my predictions. But moving into the next matchups, I have Dallas versus Florida. You'd have Dallas versus Thieves, and I have Ultra versus Rocker.
Yeah, and
Um,
I have both of those going to Dallas and Toronto. So I'm sure you're probably
yes,
having the same.
I am agreeing. I know Florida beat Dallas the last time they faced off, but like, Florida had just had an amazing day or an
Yeah.
amazing week, honestly, that week. But yeah, I'm going Dallas 3-1 over Florida. I'm going Toronto 3-1 over Rocker. Last matchup of Saturday, we got Chicago versus FaZe. Giving it to FaZe 3-1, 3-2 over Optic Chicago.
I am doing it 3-2 over Optic. So, yes, but also no, because I think that Optic is in rare form. I don't think that they're gonna win this major, but I think that they're gonna do a little bit better than what people imagine. So yeah,
Yeah, Optics had some.
oh yeah,
Sorry, continue.
I have FaZe going into the major final again because nothing
You're
changes.
learning. You're learning.
I have them winning it too. So
Oh, you're going with me. I've picked FaZe to win every single major this year so far,
only been
and I
wrong
don't
once.
think this one's going. I've only been wrong once. But a matchup where I'll most likely surely be wrong is Dallas versus Toronto. This one's pretty big toss up. Last time these two teams faced off at a major, it went all the way to a game 5 both times. First time Toronto was able to pull out the W. The second time Dallas was able to pull out the W. And when they rematched in groups for stage 5, it was Dallas walking away with the 3-1 victory up against Toronto Ultra. So who is going to get revenge or continue their reign at the stage 5 major? This is a pretty important matchup since I do believe whichever team wins here between Dallas and Toronto, barring our brackets are 100% correct so far, is the team that will claim the second seed for champs.
Yeah, so we're talking about the Ultra Dallas, right?
Yes.
I've got Toronto winning this 3-2 over Dallas.
Oh, you do? Okay. I am also going with Toronto 3-2 over Dallas. Why do you think Toronto's going to pull out the dub?
Um, really, it just comes down to the a coin toss at the end of the day. But I will say that Toronto, despite their performance this last weekend against Dallas, I I have faith that they'll come back and I don't know. At the end of the day, neither of these two teams really matter because I have either of them losing to Optic in the elimination final. So
Oh, okay. I actually have Toronto beating Optic in the elimination
okay.
final. I think they'll be able to pick up enough steam off of a really hyped Dallas victory and be able to beat this Optic Chicago roster, who's kind of just been sitting there
Well,
since the prior day.
yeah, but I don't know. Like at the same time, yeah, we could say momentum, but I mean it's really hard to gain momentum whenever there's commercials and technical difficulties and whatever bull crap
There
is
is
going to
supposed to
happen.
be a crowd here too, so that I think could almost sway me in having Dallas take the dub over
Yeah,
Toronto.
but it's optic. Like if anybody's gonna play to the crowd,
Yes,
it's gonna be who brings 70% of the crowd. So,
that is true.
I mean, like I feel like Optic has got this 3-2, but at the end of the day, when it gets to the major final, I've got them losing to FaZe 5-3. So
Yeah, I am also agreeing. that it's going to be FaZe winning the final 5-3. I have them taking it over Toronto, but it honestly, it's just going to be a really action-packed. I feel like, I mean, we have a solid top 4 teams, and I do think Dallas, Toronto, and Chicago, they have the ability to beat FaZe. It's there. I mean, FaZe, they've been beaten by Toronto before, back at the Stage 2 major. Chicago, they just beat FaZe 2 weeks ago. Dallas, they got super close to beating them at the Stage 4 major. All of these teams have shown the potential to beat this FaZe lineup. They have it in them. So either way that this Stage 5 major ends out, I think all of the winners finals, elimination round 5, the elimination finals, and the major finals, I think all of them are going to be action packed, super fun to watch matches. And then even some of the kind of lower matches between the middle of the pack, your 5th through 8th place teams, are going to be pretty exciting to watch. And hopefully we'll see some crazy stuff come out of the teams that can no longer make champs, if they're also facing a team that can't make champs. Maybe we'll see snipers, maybe we'll see some breaking of GAs, in agreement to break the GAs so that no one gets blacklisted from getting picked up by a roster, or whatever
Yeah.
BS these players like to decide to force people to play to their absurd rules. But I think this is going to be a really good weekend of Call of Duty. That is going to round out our Stage 5 major predictions, which is going to round out this episode, unless you have anything else to add, Kevin.
Um, I got asked a question during the podcast. Um, so during the college COD season, we saw arguably one of the greatest performances in college COD history, with Ottawa University coming out of nowhere, assembling essentially two pro-am teams and wiping the floor with everybody. How okay, in a scrim against the worst team, which would be, is that the Gorillas?
Yes, I would say
Okay,
it's the Gorilla.
against the Gorillas, how many maps would they win against the Gorillas?
Are they playing a best of 5, or are they playing
Just
all the
probably
maps?
just playing all the maps. Like
So how many maps is that? That's 13
13.
maps in total,
Yeah.
if we're counting S&D.
Yeah.
So it's tricky because I haven't seen them play at all. Um,
I
I
mean,
do think this was the team that had Noisy.
yeah, Noisy, Fame, like both of those guys are pro. Actually, Chris Radial just tweeted out that him, Fame, Nagafin, and Mochilla are going to be running Challengers finals together. So, um, so it's one of those things that, like, yeah, they're good, they're really good, and they can compete. I just don't know how many maps they would pull off. I said three. I was like, or sorry, I said
Yeah,
like
I
out of
was gonna say 3 actually.
all of the maps, I feel like they're gonna be competitive enough to at least like stick together with three. It's just one of those things that's interesting. You would never say that, like, no matter like the best Alabama or Ohio State football team would go into the NFL and beat one of the pro teams, but I guess that's just esports, right? You
Yeah, some people think that, but the because yeah, some people think that, like, one of the things was, oh, Ohio State could beat the Browns when the Browns were like really good.
right,
But what a lot of people don't think about is, okay, but even though the Browns suck, everyone on there is a pro. Meanwhile, not everyone on Ohio State is going to go pro or
right,
is good enough to go pro. So that's kind of how you always have to look at these amateur versus professional scenarios. With esports, it's a little more close, I
right,
think, in skill potentially, because there's not like, because most, like, a lot of the time you have 18-year-olds becoming pros like right out of high school or something along those lines. So if you got like a high school team of all 18-year-olds that could go pro or whatever, and you merge them all together, then they could beat a pro team. I'm pretty sure that's like what Cloud9 was for League of Legends back in the day.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I don't know. It's just it was a question that I thought was kind of interesting, and I wanted to know your opinion on it before we signed off. But I
Yeah,
think
for
that
me, it's hard because I haven't
seen them
watched them play enough. I
right.
would have to see them play up against a challenger team. And if they could do pretty well up against a challenger caliber team, maybe LAG Academy, then I could see them taking maybe some more maps off of LAG. But for how bad of a team LAG is in the Pro League, I still do think that they would be able to beat the collegiate team in a best of 5,
Oh
and the
yeah, and
collegiate team would probably only take 3 maps, uh, maybe 4 if they were to do if they were to play through every map and mode combination.
yeah, I definitely don't see them winning a best of 5 either. Yeah, I want to make that clear. I don't see them winning, but at the same time, like they're they're good enough that they could win some maps. So, all right, but that's all I got.
Okay, well, that is going to round out this episode of Justin Esports Podcast. There won't be an episode next Wednesday since we'll have a bit of a break, and not sure when the next one will be. We'll just plan for 2 weeks from this episode, where we will potentially try and get a special guest to do the CDL Championship / playoff episode.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I'm gonna have to look at the date for that. That will more align with when that episode will be released. But at least for this episode, that's it from us. We will see you guys next time.
Later.